Hi all, this is our second recording for week 1 for Sociology 205. Today we will be talking about the We Are 1 in 100 reading, which is in the introduction of the actual text. So before we really get going with that, I want you to think about what exactly is the most deviant thing you have ever done. When I was in graduate school, we did this exercise where we took all of our students and we asked them what the most deviant thing they ever did was, and we had them write it on a piece of paper, and then we collected those pieces of paper and we compared the things. And the vast majority of those were things like, oh, I used such and such drug. Oh, I had this kind of sex, that kind of thing. And I'm sure those students thought that what they did was like really scandalous at the time. But in reality, those things weren't so scandalous to us, the professors, because we'd seen hundreds and hundreds of them. We stopped doing that eventually because we realized by virtue of sheer numbers, eventually we were going to have someone admit to a murder. And we realized that legally probably wasn't such a great idea. But the point is, think about that thing you did. Write it down. If you don't want to write it down, just think about it. Keep that with you during this course because it's pertinent, and we'll talk about it. It's pertinent because did you get away with it? Chances are you did. Chances are if you're taking college courses, you probably got away with it. And if you didn't get away with it, what could have happened worse, right? A lot of times when we are caught doing the things, we're given a warning of some kind. And the difference between getting away with it and getting that warning or being thrown in prison for years is the difference between us, those people, the majority of us who have done things, and the convict, right? And that's important to keep in mind. It's important to keep in mind that most convicts, at least when they start out, are very much like us. Deviance is absolutely common. I had a professor in graduate school say it's just about the most common thing there is. You probably, with your deviance, could have wound up in prison for doing that most deviant thing. And if it wasn't an illegal thing, if everyone knew about it, they'd probably think less of you, which, could hurt your standing in the community, right? 1 in 100 Americans have been caught and the worst thing happened to them doing that thing. And but it is important also to remember that many of those who are in prison now have been in prison before for other things. And that is problematic with our deviance being absolutely common hypothesis because, well, if you did something before, why are you in there again now? That's a concept that we will explore throughout this course. And that concept of having been in, that is called recidivism. Recidivism we are defining as committing a crime and being incarcerated after being incarcerated before. And sometimes we talk about recidivism rates. That's the rate at which certain groups, demographic groups typically, are incarcerated more than one time. So if you are African American, you've committed a crime, what's the recidivism rate for your group? If you are between the ages of 25 and 35, what's the recidivism rate for that group? If you are a 65-year-old Asian American woman, what is the recidivism rate for that group? For example. So poor people tend to have higher rates of recidivism, and it's thought that part of that recidivism rate is because a lot of poor people, all the people they know are poor, so therefore they have less of a safety net when they leave prison, So when you're desperate, you leave prison, you might commit another crime because that's what you know how to do, and that's how you wind up back in prison. It is important at the very beginning for us to define the difference between jail and prison. Jail is a holding place for people for short periods of time. So people who are in jail are typically defendants during their trial that cannot make bail or cannot be trusted to be released. An inmate can only typically be kept in jail for more than 1 year. It is illegal, or at least legally problematic, to keep people in jail for more than 1 year because they haven't had their trial, and that is constitutionally mandated. Jails do tend to be typically less funded than prisons, and for that reason they do tend to be less pleasant. Neither jail nor prison in the United States is pleasant, but jails tend to have a lower quality of food, lower quality of sleeping quarters. They tend to be more tightly packed, that kind of thing. Prisons then are longer-term holding facilities. Within prisons, inmates go there after they've been found guilty in court. Prisons can be either private or state-owned. There have been some bits in the news about the constitutionality of privately owned prisons, and we will discuss that through this course. And most of the material we address in this class will be regarding prisons. We will talk a little bit about parolees who are on the outside. We'll talk about various forms of prison leave programs and jail to a degree, but our default setting for the course is the prison setting. So for your essay this week, I want you to, first of all, read the I Am 1 in 100 essay in the introduction of your book, then visit the Tumblr site. And it's important to note that there are images of students on that site too, but based on what they say in their little blurb, you can tell who's a student and who's a prisoner. Then explain why that image speaks to you. How do you relate to it? What does it mean to you? And if you need technical help on posting your image, please let me know. It shouldn't be that difficult. For more precise details, I do have the essay prompt in Blackboard. There are a few more things on there other than what I just mentioned, because I really don't want to bore you to death. And it is important to note that all essays will be checked for plagiarism. That is something that really matters to me. I more or less trust students. I don't think you're going to be doing it, but I do like to check. And if I do find you committing plagiarism, if it's really bad, I will throw the book at you, but if it's a minor mistake, I hope we can try to fix that. So, good luck with your work, and I will see you in the message boards.